$50 million. That is the exact amount Alpha Kellen Sterling wired to the Global Shifter Medical Institute in Zurich last Tuesday. He flew in Dr. Harrison Wells, the man who supposedly cured the lichen pox in '98. He summoned High Witch Odessa from the Louisiana swamps. One by one, the most powerful healers on Earth walked into the royal suite of the Silver Moon Pack House, and one by one, they walked out with their heads bowed in failure. The Alpha's son, a 4-year-old boy named Toby, was rotting from the inside out. But while the world's elite failed, a janitor named Ivy, a girl with 0 status and holes in her shoes, was about to do the impossible. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the leaked story of what actually happened inside the Sterling estate. The hallway on the 4th floor of the Sterling estate didn't smell like a home anymore. It smelled like a high-end mortuary. The air was thick with the scent of rubbing alcohol, expensive lilies, and the distinct metallic tang of terrified wolves. Alpha Kellen Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling window at the end of the corridor. He was a man who usually commanded the room just by breathing. Standing 6'4", with shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of the largest pack in North America, Kellen was known as the Iron Wolf. He had crushed rebellions in the South and negotiated peace treaties that held for decades. But right now, looking out at the rain lashing against the glass, he looked less like a king and more like a ghost. His beta, a man named Gregorian, stiff, formal, and usually unflappable, approached him slowly. "Sir," Gregorian said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Dr. Wells is leaving. He says there is nothing more his team can do. The necrosis has reached the marrow." Kellen didn't turn around. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. "That makes 1,000, he murmured. His voice was a low growl, vibrating with a lethal mixture of grief and rage. 1,000 healers. 1,000 failures. Sir, perhaps we should call the council regarding the succession. If you speak of replacing my son while he still breathes, Gregorian, I will rip your throat out right here in this hallway," Kellen said. He turned then. His eyes, usually a piercing gold, were bloodshot and rimmed with dark circles. He hadn't slept in 6 days. Gregorian bowed his head, exposing his neck in submission. "Apologies, Alpha. I only meant, we are running out of time." They were. Inside the master suite, 4-year-old Toby was fading. It had started 3 weeks ago with a fever. Then came the black veins, spiderwebbing up his small arms. Now the boy, the future of the pack, was comatose, his breathing shallow and rattling. While the Alpha and his Beta discussed the end of a lineage, a small, frantic figure was trying to push a heavy cleaning cart past the security detail at the elevator. Ivy Green was invisible. That was her survival strategy. As an Omega with no family name, no wolf form that had manifested yet, and a debt inherited from her dead parents, she was the lowest of the low. She scrubbed the floors the Alpha walked on, and she washed the sheets the prestigious guests slept in. Today, she was assigned to the 4th floor, the death ward, as the staff whispered in the kitchen. "ID," the guard grunted, not even looking at her face. "Ivy Green, housekeeping. Night shift," she squeaked, holding up her laminated badge. The guard waved her through with a dismissive flick of his hand. "Don't look at the Alpha. Don't speak to the doctors. Just clean the vomit and the blood and stay out of the way." Ivy nodded, pushing the cart. The wheels squeaked, a sound that seemed deafening in the silent hallway. She didn't want to be here. The scent of the Alpha, even distressed and exhausted, was overwhelming. It was like standing next to a thunderstorm. But she needed this shift. Her landlord, Mr. Henderson, had threatened to evict her if she didn't come up with the rent by Friday. She kept her head down, counting the tiles as she walked. 1, 2, 3, crack. 1, 2, 3, crack. She reached the station outside Toby's room. The door was slightly ajar. Dr. Wells, a pompous man in a three-piece suit, was storming out, shouting at a nurse. "It is ancient magic, I tell you. It's not biological. My machines are useless against a curse." Wells threw his clipboard onto the nurse's station counter, missing it. The clipboard clattered to the floor, papers scattering everywhere. Ivy instinctively froze, then dropped to her knees to gather the papers. It was habit. Clean up the mess. Fix the mistake. As she reached for a chart, her hand brushed against the open doorframe of the sick room, and then she felt it. It wasn't a smell, and it wasn't a sound. It was a pull, a physical tug in the center of her chest, like a fishhook snagging her heart. A whimper echoed in her mind. Not an audible sound, but a psychic cry of pure distress. Cold. So cold. "Daddy?" Ivy gasped, dropping the papers. She looked into the room. The boy, Toby, looked tiny in the massive king-sized bed. He was pale, his skin translucent. But what Ivy saw wasn't just a sick child. She saw a black, oily smoke coiling around his chest. It looked like tar, pulsating and tightening like a snake. No one else seemed to see it. The nurse was crying in the corner. Dr. Wells was yelling at Gregorian. Kellen was still by the window, his back turned, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Ivy knew she should run. If she walked into that room, she could be executed for violating protocol. Omegas did not approach the royal family. Omegas did not enter the Alpha's private quarters without a direct order. But the pull was agonizing. It hurt her to see him in pain. Without thinking, Ivy stood up. She abandoned her cart. She stepped over the threshold. The air inside the room was freezing, despite the thermostat being set to 80 degrees. The black smoke around the boy hissed as she approached. "Hey there," Ivy whispered, her voice trembling. The room went silent. The nurse stopped crying. Dr. Wells stopped shouting. Kellen turned around slowly from the window. When he saw a ragged girl in an oversized grey uniform standing over his dying son, his face contorted into a mask of fury. "Who let her in?" Kellen roared. The sound shook the walls. "Get her out, now!" Two guards rushed forward, grabbing Ivy by her arms. "Wait!" Ivy screamed, her eyes locked on the boy. "It's choking him. Can't you see it? The shadow is choking him." "She's insane," Dr. Wells scoffed. "Get this trash out of here." The guards dragged her back. Ivy dug her heels into the expensive carpet. The connection to the boy was screaming now. If she left, he would die in the next 10 minutes. She knew it with a certainty that terrified her. "Let me touch him," Ivy begged, struggling against the guard's grip. "Please, just for a second, I can pull it off." Kellen marched across the room, his presence looming over her like a collapsing building. He grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. His eyes were swirling with gold and black, the sign of a wolf on the edge of losing control. "You have 5 seconds to explain why I shouldn't snap your neck for disturbing my son's final moments," Kellen hissed. "He's not dying of sickness," Ivy choked out, tears streaming down her face. "He's being strangled. The black tar. It's a parasite. Please, I can see it." Kellen paused. He looked at the girl. She was malnourished, terrified, and smelled like cheap bleach. But her eyes were a startling violet. And in them, he didn't see deceit. He saw desperation. "Alpha," Gregorian warned, stepping forward. "She is a nobody, a cleaner. This is likely a ploy for money or attention." Kellen looked at his son. Toby gave a jagged, wet cough. The heart monitor began to beep erratically. Beep, beep, beep. "He's flatlining," the nurse screamed. Chaos erupted. Doctors rushed in with paddles. "Clear!" Ivy saw the black smoke tighten. The paddles wouldn't work. The electricity would only feed the shadow. "No!" Ivy screamed. She bit the hand of the guard holding her right arm. He yelled and let go. She kicked the other guard in the shin, ducking under his grasp. It was a burst of adrenaline she didn't know she possessed. She bolted for the bed. "Stop her!" Kellen roared, lunging for her. He was too slow, or maybe deep down he hesitated. Ivy threw herself onto the bed, covering the boy's small body with her own. She placed her hands directly on his chest, right where the black smoke was thickest. "Let him go," she commanded. It wasn't a plea. It was an order. A blinding flash of violet light exploded from her hands. The shockwave threw Kellen backward. He hit the wall with a thud that cracked the plaster. Dr. Wells was knocked off his feet, landing in a heap of medical equipment. The windows rattled in their frames. For a moment, the room was silent, ringing with the aftermath of the explosion. Kellen shook his head, his wolf growling in his mind, urging him to kill the threat. He scrambled to his feet, claws extending, ready to tear the Omega girl apart. But then he heard it. Thump, 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 thump. A strong, steady heartbeat. The erratic beeping of the monitor had leveled out into a rhythmic, healthy cadence. Kellen froze. The violet light was fading, retreating back into the girl's hands. Ivy was slumped over Toby's chest, her breathing heavy and ragged. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, the black smoke that Ivy had described, the smoke Kellen had never been able to see, became visible for a split second. It writhed like a dying worm, hissed, and then dissolved into grey ash, floating up toward the ceiling vents. "Daddy!" The word was weak, dry, but it was the most beautiful sound Kellen had ever heard. He rushed to the bedside, shoving the stunned doctors out of his way. Toby's eyes were open. The cloudy grey film was gone, replaced by the bright, mischievous blue they had always been. The black veins on his arms were fading before their eyes, retreating like a tide going out. "Toby!" Kellen choked, falling to his knees beside the bed. He grabbed his son's hand. It was warm. The fever heat was gone. "Toby, look at me. Are you thirsty?" Toby whispered. "Can I have juice?" Kellen let out a laugh that sounded like a sob. He buried his face in the mattress. "Yes. Yes, all the juice you want." The room remained in a state of stunned paralysis. The high heelers, the $50,000 an hour specialists, stared with their mouths open. They had been preparing a death certificate, and a janitor had just reversed stage 4 necrosis in 10 seconds. Then, the reality of the situation set in. Gregorian, recovering his wits, signaled the guards. "Seize her. She used unauthorized magic. She could be a witch sent to finish the job later." 2 fresh guards stepped forward, grabbing Ivy roughly by the shoulders. She didn't fight this time. She was drained. Her skin was grey, and she looked like she might faint. "Wait," Kellen said. He didn't look up from his son, but his voice was steel. "Do not touch her." "Sir," Gregorian argued, "we don't know what she did. That burst of energy, that wasn't normal healing. That was something else, sorcery." Kellen stood up. He towered over the bed, placing a protective hand on Toby's forehead. He turned his gaze to Ivy. She was trembling, holding her hands close to her chest. Her uniform was stained with the ash from the creature. "Who are you?" Kellen asked. His tone wasn't angry anymore, but it was intensely curious, bordering on predatory. "Ivy," she whispered. "Just Ivy. Alpha. Just Ivy," he repeated. And how did just Ivy succeed where Dr. Wells failed? Dr. Wells bristled, straightening his tie. "This is a trick, Alpha Sterling. A temporary glamour. The boy will likely crash within the hour. I suggest we arrest this girl for practicing unlicensed medicine and get the boy back on the drip." "Get out!" Kellen said calmly. Excuse me? Get out, Kellen roared, his eyes flashing gold again. Take your machines, take your invoices, and get out of my territory before I decide to demand a refund in blood. Wells scrambled out of the room, followed by his team. Now, it was just the Alpha, his Beta, the recovered cub, and the cleaning girl. Gregorian, Kellen said. Take Toby to the secure wing. Have Dr. Aris, our pack doctor, not these mercenaries. Check his vitals every 5 minutes. If his temperature changes by 1 degree, I want to know. And the girl? Gregorian asked, eyeing Ivy with suspicion. Kellen looked at Ivy. He stepped closer to her. She flinched, expecting a blow. Instead, he leaned in, inhaling her scent. Underneath the bleach and the fear, there was something else. It was faint, buried deep, but it was there. Honeysuckle and rain. It was a calming scent, one that made his wolf settle down instantly. Take her to the interrogation suite, Kellen ordered. Not the cells, the suite. Put a guard on the door. No one goes in or out but me. Am I in trouble? Ivy asked, her voice small. I wanted to help. Kellen looked at her, his expression unreadable. You saved the prince of the pack. You're not in trouble, Ivy. But you are a mystery, and I don't like mysteries inside my house. As the guards escorted Ivy out, she looked back one last time. Toby was sitting up, drinking a cup of water, looking healthy and alive. He looked at her and smiled. It was worth it, she thought, even if they locked her up. But Ivy didn't know that her problems were just beginning. Down the hall, in the shadows of the alcove near the elevator, a woman was watching. She had long, sleek black hair and wore a dress that cost more than Ivy would earn in 10 lifetimes. This was Lydia, the daughter of the Southern Alpha, and the woman the council had chosen to be Kellen's new mate. She had been waiting for Toby to die. A cub from a previous mate was an inconvenience. A dead cub was a tragedy she could use to comfort Kellen and cement her position as Luna. Lydia watched Ivy being led away. She pulled out her phone, a slender, encrypted device, and dialed a number. We have a problem, Lydia whispered into the phone. The brat is alive, and some gutter rat, Omega, just performed a miracle. I want everything on her. Who she is, where she came from, and who she owes money to. We need to crush this before Kellen starts asking the right questions. Ivy sat in the interrogation suite. It was nicer than her apartment. There was a leather couch, a mahogany table, and a pitcher of water, but the door was locked from the outside. She looked at her hands. They were still tingling. She had always known she was different. When she was a child, she could find lost things. When her mother had headaches, Ivy could touch her temples and take the pain away. But she had never done anything like that. The explosion of light, the physical sensation of grabbing the smoke. She was scared. In the werewolf world, if you had power but no status, you were a threat. Or worse, a battery to be used. The door clicked open. Ivy jumped up. It wasn't Kellen. It was a man she recognized from the tabloids. Tall, lean, with silver spectacles and a cruel smile. Councilman Thorne. He wasn't part of the Obsidian Shadow Pack, but he held power over all the packs in the region. Miss Green, Thorne said, closing the door softly behind him. He didn't smell like a wolf. He smelled like parchment and old blood. You've caused quite a stir. I saved him, Ivy said defensively. Yes, you did, Thorne agreed, walking around the table. Which is unfortunate. We had already prepared the funeral arrangements. It disrupts the political landscape to have the heir survive, especially when the Alpha is so unstable. Ivy's blood ran cold. You wanted him to die? Thorne laughed. We want stability, my dear. Kellen is weak with grief. A weak Alpha can be controlled. A relieved alpha is dangerous. He placed a briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside were stacks of cash. "Here is $50,000, Thorne said. "Take it. Sign this confession saying you gave the boy a stimulant drug that mimics healing, but will eventually kill him, and then leave the territory forever." "What?" Ivy stared at him in horror. "No, he's really healed. I didn't drug him." "If you stay," Thorne said, his voice dropping to a menacing hiss, "Lydia will destroy you. She will plant evidence. She will say you poisoned the boy to cure him, to gain favor. You will be executed for witchcraft. This is your only way out. Take the money. Disappear." Ivy looked at the money. It was enough to pay off her debts, enough to start over. But then she remembered Toby's blue eyes, thirsty. "No," Ivy said, lifting her chin. "I won't lie. I saved him." Thorne sighed, closing the briefcase. "Pity. I always prefer the quiet way." He turned to the door. "Guard, the prisoner has confessed to poisoning the cub. She claims she has the antidote, but she's refusing to give it unless we pay her." "What?" "No," Ivy screamed. The door burst open. But it wasn't the guards. It was Kellen, and he had heard everything. The heavy oak door slammed shut behind Kellen, locking the three of them in a suffocating bubble of tension. Councilman Thorne, usually the picture of political arrogance, looked as if he had swallowed a stone. He took a half-step back, his hand instinctively going to his neck, a primal reaction to being in the room with an enraged Alpha. "Alpha Sterling," Thorne stammered, his heartbeat audible in the silence of the room. "I was just testing her. Standard protocol. We have to ensure she isn't a mercenary." Kellen didn't yell. He didn't growl. He moved with the terrifying, fluid grace of a predator stalking prey. He walked past Ivy, placing himself directly between her and the councilman. The symbolism was clear. "She is mine. You are the threat." "You offered her $50,000 to lie," Kellen said softly. His voice was like grinding gravel. "You tried to frame an innocent girl for the murder of my son, a murder that didn't happen because of her." "It was a stress test," Thorne insisted, though sweat was now beading on his forehead. "We need to know if she can be bought. If she had taken the money, we would have known she was a fraud." Kellen laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound. "And when you told the guards she confessed, was that a test too, Thorne? Or was that an execution order?" Kellen lunged. It happened so fast, Ivy barely saw it. 1 second Kellen was standing 5 feet away. The next, he had Thorne pinned against the wall, his forearm pressed against the councilman's windpipe. Thorne's feet dangled 6 inches off the floor. "I should rip your head off," Kellen whispered into Thorne's ear. "My wolf wants to paint this room with your blood. You conspired against the crown. That is treason." Thorne clawed at Kellen's arm, his face turning purple. "You can't. The council. Immunity." "The council isn't here," Kellen snarled. "And accidents happen in interrogation rooms every day." Ivy stood frozen by the table. She should be cheering. Thorne was a monster. But she felt that pull again, the empathic tug she had felt with Toby. She could feel Kellen's rage. It was a forest fire, consuming him. If he killed Thorne now, the political fallout would destroy the pack. The other Alphas would view him as a tyrant who murdered diplomats. "Alpha!" Ivy shouted. Kellen froze. His head snapped toward her, his eyes bleeding into full black, the wolf taking over. "Don't," Ivy said, her voice shaking but firm. "He's not worth it. If you kill him, you prove him right. You prove you're unstable." Kellen stared at her. The violet depth of her eyes seemed to pour water on his fire. The black in his eyes receded, returning to molten gold. He looked back at Thorn, disgusted. He dropped the councilman. Thorn collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, clutching his throat. "Get out," Kellen commanded. "You are banned from the Sterling estate. If I see you within 10 miles of my son again, diplomatic immunity won't save you. I will hunt you for sport." Thorn scrambled to his feet, straightening his glasses with trembling hands. He shot a look of pure venom at Ivy, a look that promised retribution, and fled the room. Kellen took a deep breath, adjusting his cuffs. He turned to Ivy. The terrifying monster vanished, replaced by a tired, confused man. "You rejected the money," he said. It wasn't a question. "I don't want blood money," Ivy replied, hugging her arms around herself. "I just want to go home. My shift ended 2 hours ago. Mr. Henderson is going to lock me out if I don't get back." Kellen frowned. "Home? You think you're going home? Am I under arrest?" Kellen stepped closer. He reached out, and Ivy flinched. He paused, letting his hand hover in the air until she relaxed, then gently brushed a smudge of ash from her cheek. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through both of them. Ivy gasped. Kellen's pupils dilated. "Mate." The word whispered through Kellen's mind, primal and undeniable, but he shoved it down. He couldn't. Not now. Not with an Omega of unknown origin. Not when his son had almost died. He needed to be rational. "You are not under arrest, Ivy," Kellen said, his voice dropping an octave. "But you are not leaving. You have a target on your back now. Thorn will not forgive this humiliation. Lydia, she will be asking questions." "Who is Lydia?" "Someone dangerous," Kellen said darkly. "You are now a person of interest. Until I figure out exactly what you are and how you healed Toby, you will stay here, under my protection." "I can't!" Ivy panicked. "I have responsibilities. I have a brother. Leo, he's at the apartment. He can't be alone." This was the secret she had been hiding. Her younger brother, Leo, was 14. He was born wolfless, a genetic defect that made him an outcast. In their old pack, wolfless boys were culled. That's why they had run. That's why they were hiding in the slums. Kellen's eyes narrowed. "A brother? Where?" "At the tenements on 4th Street. Please, Alpha. He needs his medicine. He doesn't know where I am." Kellen tapped the earpiece he always wore. "Gregorian." "Yes, Alpha?" The beta's voice crackled in his ear. "Send an extraction team to 4th Street, apartment 4B. Secure a boy named Leo. Bring him to the estate. Guest wing, room 302. "Alpha, wait!" Ivy protested. "You can't just kidnap him." "I'm not kidnapping him, Ivy," Kellen said, his gaze intense. "I'm moving him. Because by tomorrow morning, everyone in the city will know your name. And if Thorn can't get to you, he will go for your family." Ivy went silent. She knew he was right. She had exposed herself to save the prince. Now, the wolves were circling. "Come," Kellen said, opening the door. "You need to eat. Using that kind of magic, it has a price." As Ivy walked out of the interrogation room, flanked by the most powerful Alpha in the hemisphere, she didn't feel like a prisoner, but she didn't feel free either. She felt like a canary being moved from a cardboard box into a gilded cage. And outside the heavy front doors of the estate, the paparazzi were already gathering. Someone had leaked the story. The headline on the Daily Shifter website read, "Witchcraft in the Royal Suite, Unknown Girl Resurrects Prince." The comment section was already calling for a witch trial. The guest room was larger than Ivy's entire apartment. It had a balcony overlooking the Silver Moon Forest, a bed with sheets made of Egyptian cotton, and a bathroom stocked with soaps that smelled like lavender and vanilla, but it locked from the outside. It had been 6 hours since the healing. Ivy had showered, scrubbing the smell of death and bleach from her skin. She wore a silk robe that had been left for her, far too fancy for a janitor, but her uniform had been incinerated by the guards. She paced the room. "Where is Leo?" she muttered. A knock at the door made her jump. "Enter," she squeaked. The door opened, and Kellen walked in. He had showered too. He was wearing casual clothes, dark jeans and a black t-shirt that clung to his chest. He held a silver tray covered with a dome. "Room service," he said, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Where is my brother?" Ivy demanded, ignoring the food. "He is in the room next door," Kellen assured her. "He is eating a burger the size of his head and watching a movie on a screen he claims is dope. He is safe, Ivy. I give you my word." Ivy let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her knees went weak, and she sat down on the edge of the bed. "Thank you." Kellen set the tray on the small table and lifted the lid. Steak, rare. Roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes. Ivy's stomach growled so loudly it echoed in the room. She blushed. "Eat," Kellen commanded gently. "I spoke to the pack historian. He says that kind of healing, the violet flame, it burns calories like a furnace. If you don't refuel, you'll pass out." Ivy didn't need to be told twice. She ate with an urgency that embarrassed her, but Kellen didn't mock her. He watched her. He watched the way her hands moved, the way her violet eyes darted around the room. "You're not a normal Omega," Kellen said after she had finished the steak. He sat in the armchair opposite her. "I never said I was." Ivy wiped her mouth with a linen napkin. "I'm just me." "My grandfather wrote about a bloodline," Kellen mused, leaning forward. "The Ethelgard, healer warriors. They were wiped out in the Great War 100 years ago. They had violet eyes." Ivy looked down. "My mother told me to never show anyone my eyes. She gave me colored contacts. I ran out of them last week and couldn't afford new ones." "Your mother was wise," Kellen said. "If the council knew an Ethelgard survived, they would have dissected you in a lab." The atmosphere in the room shifted. It became intimate. The danger of the outside world felt far away. "Why did you do it?" Kellen asked quietly. "You knew the rules. You knew the danger. Why risk your life for my son?" Ivy looked at him. "Because I felt him. It's hard to explain. When people hurt, I hurt. When he was choking on that smoke, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't save him to be a hero. I saved him because I had to." Kellen stood up and walked to her. He knelt on one knee, a position of submission that shocked Ivy. He took her hand. His skin was rough, hot, and electric. "You gave me back my life," Kellen whispered. "I owe you a debt I can never repay." He raised her hand to his lips. The door banged open. Kellen was on his feet in a microsecond, a low growl rumbling in his chest, his body shielding Ivy. Standing in the doorway was a woman who looked like she had walked out of a fashion magazine, if fashion magazines featured predators. She wore a crimson dress, sky-high heels, and a diamond choker. Her hair was black, slicked back, and her eyes were a cold, piercing green. Lydia, the Southern Alpha's daughter, the intended Luna. Behind her stood 3 council guards and a very smug-looking Dr. Wells. "Well, well," Lydia purred, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Isn't this cozy? The Alpha King, kneeling before the help." "Get out, Lydia," Kellen warned. The air in the room grew heavy with his aura. "You have no business in this wing." "Oh, but I do." Lydia stepped into the room, wrinkling her nose as if she smelled something foul. She looked at Ivy with pure disgust. "The council has authorized an emergency inquiry. Dr. Wells has filed a formal complaint regarding the use of forbidden necromancy." "It wasn't necromancy," Ivy protested, stepping out from behind Kellen. Lydia laughed. It speaks. How adorable. Listen to me, little rat. Normal wolves don't shoot purple fire. Normal wolves don't cure stage 4 death. You are a witch, and in this pack, we burn witches. She is under my protection, Kellen stated, his voice vibrating with command. If you touch her, you declare war on me. Lydia's smile didn't falter. She pulled out a tablet. I thought you might say that, Kellen. So I took the liberty of going to the press. Look! She turned the screen around. It showed the front gates of the Sterling estate. A mob had gathered. Hundreds of wolves holding torches and signs. Purge the witch and protect the prince were scrawled on cardboard. They are terrified, Lydia explained. They think she infected Toby just to cure him. They think she's enslaving you with a love spell. If you protect her, they will revolt. The council will strip you of your alpha title for mental incompetence due to sorcery. Kellen looked at the screen, then at Ivy. He was trapped. If he fought the mob, he hurt his own people. If he gave Ivy up, she died. I have a solution, Dr. Wells chimed in. A simple blood test. If she is a wolf, the test will prove it. If she is a witch, well, the test will reveal that too. No needles, Kellen said immediately. He remembered Ivy's fear of the lab. Just a drop, Lydia insisted. Right here, right now, unless she has something to hide. Ivy looked at Kellen. She saw the conflict in his eyes. She didn't want him to lose his crown. She didn't want to be the reason for a civil war. I'll do it, Ivy said, stepping forward. Ivy, no, Kellen warned. I'm not a witch, Ivy said, holding out her arm to Dr. Wells. Test me. Dr. Wells stepped forward, a silver lancet in his hand. He pricked her finger. He smeared the drop of blood onto a chemically treated strip of paper. Everyone watched. If it turned red, she was a wolf. If it turned black, she was a witch. The strip turned gold, a bright, shimmering, metallic gold. The room went silent. Even Lydia looked confused. What is that? Lydia snapped. Is the test broken? Ivy felt a wave of dizziness. The smell of the chemical strip. It smelled wrong. It smelled like... Wait, Ivy whispered. She looked at Dr. Wells. She looked at the lancet he had used. She sniffed the air. Nightshade and rot. It was the same smell she had sensed on the black smoke choking Toby. You! Ivy shouted, pointing at Dr. Wells. You smell like the sickness. Dr. Wells dropped the lancet. His face went pale. What are you babbling about? Lydia hissed. The smoke. Ivy turned to Kellen, gripping his arm. The black smoke I pulled out of Toby. It wasn't a curse. It was a poison. A biological poison. And he, she pointed at the doctor, smells exactly like it. Kellen turned his gaze to Dr. Wells. The doctor was backing toward the door, his eyes wide with panic. Is this true? Kellen asked, his voice deceptively calm. She's lying, Wells shrieked. She's a witch. Look at the blood. It's gold. She's a monster. The blood is gold, Kellen said slowly, because she is Ethelgard, royal blood. But you are sweating, Doctor. Kellen took a step toward Wells. Lydia, Wells screamed, looking at the woman in the red dress. You said you'd protect me. The silence that followed that sentence was deafening. Lydia's face went blank. The mask of the concerned Luna slipped, revealing the viper underneath. She realized the doctor had just implicated her. I don't know what this lunatic is talking about, Lydia said coldly. She raised her hand. Suddenly, the window shattered. A canister smashed through the glass, landing in the center of the room. It hissed, spewing thick green gas. Wolfsbane! Kellen roared. Don't breathe it! He grabbed Ivy, covering her face with his shirt. But the gas filled the room instantly. It was military grade. Kellen fell to his knees, his wolf howling in agony as the poison hit his system. Lydia and the guards, apparently anticipating this, had pulled gas masks from their pockets. "You idiots," Lydia muttered to Wells. "Plan B it is." Two massive, masked mercenaries rappelled through the broken window. "Grab the girl," Lydia ordered, stepping over Kellen's convulsing body. "Kill the doctor. He talks too much. And leave the Alpha here. We'll tell the press the witch gassed him and escaped." "No." Kellen tried to shift, but his limbs wouldn't obey. He watched helplessly as the mercenaries grabbed Ivy. "Kellen!" Ivy screamed, reaching for him. One of the men hit her on the back of the head with the butt of a rifle. She went limp. "Sweet dreams, Alpha," Lydia sneered, looking down at Kellen. "Don't worry. I'll take good care of the pack." She turned and walked out the door, the mercenaries carrying Ivy's unconscious body behind her. Kellen lay on the floor, the world going dark. His son was safe, but his mate, the girl with the violet eyes, was gone. And for the first time in 10 years, the Iron Wolf felt true fear. Pain was the first thing Kellen felt. It wasn't the dull ache of a bruise or the sharp sting of a cut. It was a burning, liquid fire coursing through his veins. Wolfsbane didn't just hurt, it tried to divorce the man from the wolf, severing the spiritual tether that kept a shifter sane. He gasped, his body jerking upright. He wasn't on the floor of the guest room anymore. He was in a medical bed, restrained by heavy leather straps. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. "Easy, Alpha. Easy." It was Gregorian. The beta looked terrible. His suit was rumpled, his tie missing, and he had a bandage wrapped around his head. "Let me out!" Kellen rasped. His throat felt like he had swallowed glass. "I can't do that, sir," Gregorian said, his voice thick with regret. "The council has placed you on medical lockdown. They say the witch's gas attack caused psychotic breaks. They've declared you unfit to command." Kellen stopped struggling. The fog in his brain cleared instantly, replaced by a cold, calculating rage. "Lydia. She is currently holding a press conference in the Great Hall," Gregorian said, looking at the floor. "She is spinning a masterclass, sir. She claims she arrived just in time to save you from Ivy Green. She claims Ivy and Dr. Wells were conspiring to assassinate you and take the cub. And the pack believes her?" "The pack is scared," Gregorian replied. "They saw you convulsing. They saw the gas. And Ivy, she's an Omega with no history. It's an easy sell." Kellen tested the leather straps. They were reinforced with silver. Useless to struggle against. "Where is my son?" "Toby is safe. He's with your mother in the East Wing. But Lydia has blocked access to him. She claims she's protecting the heir." Kellen closed his eyes. He reached deep inside himself, past the pain of the wolfsbane, looking for his wolf. Usually, the wolf was a roaring inferno. Now, it was a flickering ember. But there was something else there. A warmth. He focused on his chest, right where Ivy had touched him. He could still feel it, the ghost of her touch. It wasn't just a memory, it was energy. The Ethelgard magic hadn't just healed Toby, it had left a residue on Kellen. She isn't just a healer, Kellen realized. She's a battery. "Gregorian," Kellen whispered. "Come closer." The beta hesitated, then leaned in. "Sir, do you trust me?" "With my life, Alpha." "Then undo the left strap, just the left one." "Sir, if the council guard sees me, do it." Gregorian's fingers trembled, but he obeyed. He unbuckled the restraint on Kellen's left wrist. That was all Kellen needed. He didn't use strength. He used the residue of Ivy's energy. He channeled that foreign, violet warmth into his arm. His muscles swelled, ripping the sleeve of his hospital gown. With a roar that shattered the light bulbs overhead, Kellen ripped his right arm free, snapping the thick leather like wet paper. He sat up, tearing the sensors off his chest. "Alpha!" Gregorian stared, wide-eyed. "The wolfsbane. You should be paralyzed for days." "She left a part of herself with me," Kellen growled, standing up. The floor was cold, but he didn't care. "Where is she?" "We don't know," Gregorian admitted. "The mercenaries took her in a black van. No plates. But we have a lead." "What lead?" "The boy. Leo. Ivy's brother." Kellen froze. He had forgotten about the boy in the chaos. "Is he safe?" "Yes. When the gas hit, I managed to get him out the back service elevator before Lydia's goons secured the floor. I hid him in the garage." "Bring me to him." 10 minutes later, Kellen, now dressed in a tactical black suit Gregorian had stashed in his car, stood in the shadows of the underground parking garage. Leo was sitting on the hood of a dusty sedan, typing furiously on a cracked laptop. The kid was skinny, wearing a hoodie that was 3 sizes too big, and he was shaking, but his eyes were focused. "Where is my sister?" Leo asked, without looking up. He didn't seem intimidated by the 6'4" Alpha standing over him. "I lost her," Kellen admitted. "But I'm going to get her back. I need to know where they went." "You wolves are all stupid," Leo muttered. "You rely on your noses." "Oh, I smell vanilla. I smell fear." "You forget about digital footprints." Leo turned the laptop screen toward Kellen. "Ivy has a burner phone," Leo explained. "She thinks I don't know about it. She keeps it sewn into the lining of her work bag. Lydia's goons took the bag when they took her." "The phone is off," Kellen noted. "It can't be tracked." "The phone is off," Leo corrected, "but the SIM card is still pinging the towers. I wrote a script to triangulate the handshake signal. It's faint, but it's there." Kellen looked at the map on the screen. A blinking red dot was moving north, heading into the desolate mountain range known as the Dead Lands. It was territory that officially belonged to no pack. It was a lawless zone of old mines and abandoned factories. "That's the Iron Ridge mine," Gregorian said, peering over Kellen's shoulder. "It's been closed for 50 years. "Not closed," Kellen said, his eyes narrowing. "Repurposed." He recognized the location. His father had once investigated rumors of a rogue laboratory in the Iron Ridge, but the council had shut down the investigation, citing lack of evidence. Thorne, Kellen thought. Thorne and Lydia. They've been working together for years. "Leo," Kellen said, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You just saved your sister's life." "Just bring her back," Leo whispered, his bravado cracking. Tears filled his eyes. "She's all I have." "I will burn the world down if I have to," Kellen vowed. He turned to Gregorian. "I can't take the pack guard. Half of them are loyal to the council, and the other half are confused. I need a strike team, a real strike team." Gregorian smiled, a grim, dangerous expression. "I made a call to the northern border. Your cousins, the Berserkers. They are 5 hours away." "We don't have 5 hours," Kellen said, checking his watch. "We have one. I'm going alone." "Suicide," Gregorian warned. "No," Kellen said, his eyes flashing gold. "Hunting." He walked to his private vehicle, a matte black armored SUV. He opened the trunk and pulled out a long, silver case. Inside was a compound bow and arrows tipped with obsidian. Kellen didn't just need to be a wolf tonight. He needed to be a killer. Ivy woke to the scent of rust and antiseptic. She was bound by heavy iron chains to a surgical chair in a tiled room that looked like a high-tech slaughterhouse. Along the walls, glass cages held emaciated wolves, tubes running from their arms, draining red fluid into collection jars. "Welcome to the future," Lydia's voice echoed. She stepped into the light, trading her gala dress for a pristine white lab coat. The extraction facility. We harvest wolf blood for the highest bidder. But you are the prize. Lydia picked up a syringe filled with shimmering gold liquid. Your blood doesn't just heal, Ivy. It amplifies. Dr. Wells isolated the Ethelgard strain. One injection of this, and I won't just be a Luna. I will be a goddess. I will kill Kellen, take the council, and rule forever. You're insane, Ivy rasped, pulling at her chains. I'm ambitious, Lydia corrected. She checked her watch. I have buyers waiting upstairs. Dr. Wells, prep her for the drainage machine. If she struggles, freeze her. Lydia marched out, the heavy blast doors sealing behind her. Dr. Wells stood trembling by the tray of instruments. He looked at the drainage tubes, then at the syringe of gold blood Lydia had left behind. Please, Ivy begged, shivering as the room's temperature plummeted. You don't have to do this. She's going to kill me anyway to tie up loose ends, Wells muttered, his eyes manic. He grabbed the syringe of gold blood. I can't save you, girl, but I can weaponize you. What? Ivy gasped. Take it back, Wells screamed, plunging the needle into Ivy's neck. Take your power back! He pushed the plunger. Liquid fire tore through Ivy's veins. It wasn't the gentle warmth of healing. It was the roar of an ancient bloodline waking up. Her back arched, bones cracking and reshaping with sickening speed. The iron chains hissed, glowing red from the heat radiating off her skin before shattering like glass. Ivy fell to the floor, writhing. Fur as white as starlight burst through her skin. She grew larger, much larger. When she stood, she wasn't a girl. She was a white wolf, 7 feet tall at the shoulder, with swirling gold markings and eyes like burning violet suns. The blast doors hissed open. 3 mercenaries burst in, rifles raised. Target is loose. Ivy didn't growl. She released a shockwave of sound that shattered the glass cages. She moved faster than sight, a blur of white fury. Bullets sparked harmlessly off her fur as she swiped a massive paw, sending 2 men flying into the concrete wall. The third dropped his gun and ran. Ivy turned her massive head toward the ceiling. She could smell Lydia's rot, but beneath it she caught another scent. Pine, rain, and desperation. Kellen! With a roar that shook the mountain, the white wolf charged, tearing the steel door frame from the wall. The queen was coming for her king. Kellen was running on pure adrenaline. He had fought his way through the mine's tunnels, his body fighting the lingering wolfsbane, but the sound of that roar pulled him forward. He kicked open the doors to the factory floor and froze. It was a massacre. But his enemies were the ones falling. The white wolf was a force of nature, decimating Lydia's elite guard on the factory floor. Above them, on a metal catwalk, Lydia was screaming into a radio, her face twisted in panic. "Kill it! Bomb the facility!" Lydia shrieked. She saw Kellen enter and whipped out a silver Desert Eagle. "Why won't you die?" she fired. Kellen was too slow. He braced for the bullet. Flash! The white wolf leaped 30 feet vertically, landing between Kellen and the shot. The bullet hit Ivy's shoulder, flattened against her impenetrable fur, and tinkled onto the grate. Ivy snarled at Lydia, baring serrated teeth. Terrified, Lydia scrambled back toward a metal case. "You want power? Fine! I'll take it all!" She ripped out a canister of raw Ethelgard blood and jammed a high-pressure injector into her own thigh. "Lydia, no!" Kellen shouted. "It's not compatible. It will kill you." "Lies!" Lydia laughed, her veins turning gold. "I feel infinite." Then, the gold turned black. Lydia screamed as steam rose from her skin. The ancient magic rejected her corruption, burning her from the inside out. "Get it out, it burns!" She convulsed and toppled over the railing, plummeting to the factory floor. She hit the concrete with a sickening crunch and didn't move. Silence fell over the factory. The remaining mercenaries dropped their weapons, surrendering to the monster on the catwalk. Ivy swayed. The violet glow faded from her eyes. The shift back was crashing down on her. She collapsed. Kellen caught her before she hit the floor. Her form shimmered, shrinking back into the human girl he knew, naked, bruised, but alive. "I've got you," Kellen whispered, wrapping his jacket around her. The doors burst open. Gregorian arrived with 50 northern berserkers. He took one look at the carnage, the dead usurper, and his alpha holding the girl. "The hierarchy just changed, Gregorian," Kellen said, lifting Ivy into his arms. "Tell the council the Ethelgard has returned, and tell them the war is over." 2 weeks later, the grand hall of the Sterling estate was overflowing. Every major alpha in the alliance stood in silence as the double doors opened. Kellen stood at the throne, Toby by his side in a miniature tuxedo. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kellen announced, his voice booming, "for years we thought the Ethelgard were a myth. We were wrong." Ivy stepped onto the dais. She wore a gown of shimmering violet silk, a circlet of white gold on her brow. She wasn't the invisible janitor anymore. She walked with the grace of a queen. "This is Ivy Sterling," Kellen said, taking her hand. "My mate, my Luna, and the savior of this pack." Toby ran forward, hugging Ivy's legs. "Mama Ivy!" The room erupted. Even the staunchest critics bowed their heads. The White Wolf had secured her crown. Later that night, on the private balcony, Ivy leaned against Kellen's chest, watching the full moon. Her brother, Leo, now sporting a tailored suit as the new head of cybersecurity, gave them a thumbs up from the garden below before disappearing to play video games. "Are you happy?" Kellen asked, resting his chin on her head. Ivy touched the spot on her neck where the injection had changed her life. She listened to the steady beat of Kellen's heart. "I have my brother. I have a home. And I have you." She smiled, her eyes flashing with a hint of violet. "I'm exactly where I belong." She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was the gold in the cracks of their broken world. And that, my friends, is the supposedly leaked file of what happened at the Sterling estate. Now, is this story 100% historically accurate to the werewolf treaties of 2024? Maybe not. But the source who sent this to me, let's just call him Leo, swears that the White Wolf is real and watching over the pack right now. If you were Ivy, would you have saved the Alpha's son after they treated you like dirt? Or would you have taken the $50,000 and run? Let me know in the comments down below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this twisty werewolf saga, smash that like button until it turns violet, and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, stay wild, and I'll see you in the next one.